everybody, Ellen here. Today I come to you guys with my September wrap-up. I cannot believe it's October already, but it is. So reading in September actually went pretty darn good compared to like this entire year, to be honest. But I ended up finishing 9.5 books. Yes, it does count, and some of them were really chunky, so yeah, let's get into it. So the very last book I finished was actually a reread, but this is Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. This is the book 2 in the series called Skyward, I want to say. But yeah, I've been re-listening to the books to, you know, be prepared for the sort of short stories, for the like novellas that are supposed to come as audiobooks. One is out already, I know, I'm gonna listen to it soon. But yeah, prepare for Dice, but also Cytonic, which is book 3, which comes out in November, I want to say, I think. So yeah, I've been re-listening to that, and this month I listened to Starsight. I love this one just as much as I did the first time. But then this one we meet Spencer, and she is one of the few surviving humans at this point. And they live on Detroitus, which is this planet they've escaped to many, like 100 years ago or so. And her biggest dream is to be able to attend the sort of flight academy, to be able to defend Detroitus against the Krell, which are sort of this like alien species that are trying to, you know, make humankind extinct, basically. Problem is that her father was actually in this academy, and he was marked a coward, which is like the worst branding you can get, basically. But she gets some help, she ends up joining the academy, and shit goes down. And the second book is just as eventful as the first one, and as you guys noticed, probably from my shelves, but you know, I love Brandon Sanderson, and I really like this series so far. So once again, I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars, and the audiobook is really good. And then I also read The House with Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson. I do own another book by her, The Girl Who Speaks Bear, I think. But she does have, I want to say 3 books that are sort of in this companion series, I want to say. But in this one we meet Marinka, and she just wants to live a normal life, but she actually lives with her grandmother, who is Baba Yaga, and they also happens to live in a house with chicken legs, who kind of just uproots itself and runs off to wherever it feels is the best place to be. So Baba Yaga actually sort of helps like the lost souls of the dead move on to the other side, you know, to leave the earth behind. And Marinka doesn't really want to be a Baba Yaga when she grows up, so she tries to find a way for her to not do that work. And you know, the house has other ideas than she does. This was a really quick read. It has some pretty like illustrations and stuff. It was very quick, fast paced, really entertaining. Marinka is a great character, and yeah, it was a great read. Not a new favorite or anything, but I really enjoyed it, and I do look forward to reading more books by Sophie Anderson. A book that I finally finished, thanks to, you know, the power of audiobooks. But this is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I still don't know the pronunciation, I'm sorry. I started reading this while being on vacation in June 2017. So it's been more than 4 years, but I finally finished it. So I ended up reading the remaining like 500 pages of this book. Is like 860 something, but I read about 500 pages of this that I had left. And in this one we meet Claire Randall. She actually lives in 1946, but she ends up going through these sort of standing stones, and she sort of vanishes back into 1743, where she meets her husband's 6 times great grandfather, and he's not as nice as her husband is. And you know, she also ends up meeting Jamie Fraser, who we basically all know who it is. And I love historical fiction, and there's definitely some heavy-duty romance scenes in here as well. And I don't know, overall I really did enjoy it. it's definitely my type of jam, but there was just like one specific scene that made me a little bit nauseous and made me sort of question Claire's and Jamie's entire relationship. If you've read the book, you know what I mean. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, after that, not so fun. But yeah, overall it's a quick paced read. Definitely feel like the audiobook helped me out. I do own the second book in the series, but I don't know when I'm going to pick it up because it took me 4 years to get through this one. But yeah, it's definitely a very eventful book. Should be aware of the fact that there's like Claire almost gets raped like at least like 6 times in the span of like 300 pages or something. So beware of that. But yeah, overall enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then I actually ended up finishing a series, which I'm really proud of, because you know, that doesn't happen often. But yeah, I read Snowglass Sigil by Hannah Blix. This is the 7th and final book in the series called Äventyren Sagafallen. And this is a middle grade series. This one is sort of a prequel to the other 6 books. And we just basically get to know why like this sort of fighting between good and evil started, how it all ended up being sort of chess plays related, and a lot of magical aspects. I don't want to say too much, but that's basically what you can say, because you definitely need to pick up the other books before this one. But yeah, it was really enjoyable. It has beautiful illustrations as always, and yeah, definitely worth a read. And I think I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. As you notice, was a good reading month because a lot of books got really high ratings. And then we definitely had a TBR veteran on my shelf that I actually ended up reading after having owned it for like, I want to say 5 years, but it might be more than that. But that is Out of the Easy by Rita Sepetys. Actually I did start reading this like 5 years ago, but realized after like 10 pages that this is not based on like, you know, true events or real people, meaning it wasn't really the type of book I wanted to read right then, because I was so hooked on her other books, which is like really based off of real true events and like based off of interviews and like documents and everything like that. So wasn't really feeling it at the time, but I decided to pick this one up in September because it was on my TBR and I was, you know, decided I was going to finish it. But in this one we meet Josie, and she lives in the Big Easy, you know, New Orleans, and she's actually the daughter of a prostitute who honestly doesn't really treat her very well for being her mother. And she just wants to dream big and, you know, be able to leave the city and go to college and everything like that. But she sort of gets wrapped up in all of this sort of criminal activity with bad people and stuff like that. And it was a quick-paced book. I definitely flew through it. Didn't enjoy it as much as her other books, but I definitely feel like Rita Sepetys is one of my favorite authors. She's a really solid author and I like the way she writes and everything like that. And I think I gave this 4 to 5 stars as well, which apparently is what every book got this month. Now we've gotten to, like, I've only read 2 books by him, so I feel like maybe it's too early to say this, but I'm gonna say this anyways. To one of my new favorite authors, and definitely one of my new favorite series, but I ended up reading Valor by John Gwynne. This is the 2nd book in the Faithful and the Fallen series. This is a hunker, just like the first book. This is like 648 pages of pure destruction. To be honest, like, I read the first book in August, I want to say. I had owned both of these books for a few years, and I don't know why I didn't pick up the first book, because I did read like 10 pages of it the day I bought it, and then just like got home and I decided to pick up something else. But this series is so good, and I feel like this would be perfect for like people who like Game of Thrones and, you know, Lord of the Rings or whatever heavy duty fantasy you read. You're gonna like this, I feel like. But in the first book we meet a lot of different characters, Corbin being one of my favorite ones, if that's how you pronounce his name, I don't know. But yeah, we meet a a lot of different characters. There's a lot of different point of views. There's some new point of views in this book, so it's a lot of people to keep track of. So I feel like you should definitely try to read them back to back if you have the chance, which I didn't, because I had like a month in between them, and I feel like that was enough to make me a little bit confused in the beginning. But yeah, we get to follow some of the characters that are supposed to be like the good ones, and then some of the ones that are pure evil, and I hate them. But that's the thing with John Gwyn's writing, that he manages to create characters that you love, and then the characters that you absolutely despise and that you wish death on basically. And this is just so good, and it has like a lot of wars and disputes and like duels and magic and giants. Like, it's awesome. And to be fair, I love it, and I fly through these books even though they're hunkers, although this one took me a lot longer because, well, work. But you know, I love this so much, and I give it 5 out of 5 stars. And the ending broke my heart, but let's not get into that because feelings. But yeah, 5 out of 5 stars for sure. We have The Slightly Alarming Tale of the Whispering Wars by Jacqueline Moriarty. I started reading this in August, ended up finishing it in September. This is a middle grade series, and this is sort of a this is the middle grade series based off The Extremely Inconvenient Adventures of Bronte Metalstone, which is technically the first book in the series. This is supposed to be a prequel about the Whispering Wars. So we meet kids from this sort of orphanage, and then kids from this really like high-end expensive boarding school, and they live very different lives, but they end up meeting in this sort of competition, like sort of you know, they're gonna run races and sprints and stuff like that, and that's how they meet. And the sort of feud starts happening, and they start pulling pranks on each other to get the other one to, you know, lose. And after that, they realize that they have to work together to save the day and help people from the Whispering Wars. And there's magic in here. There are people that can do whispers, basically telling you what to do, and it's kick-ass, it's awesome. And book 3 comes out so soon, and yeah, I love this one so much. And it also has some really beautiful headers, if I can find some. It has some really pretty illustrations by Carl James Mountford, which is one of my favorite illustrators at this point, because he makes a lot of middle grade illustrations. But yeah, I think I ended up giving this book, I want to say 4.5 out of 5 stars. I'll correct myself if I'm wrong down there, but it was a really good read, because it was such a quick pace, and I flew through this book, and I just loved the characters and the plot and basically everything about it. And then we come to the book that I'm currently reading and managed to get halfway through before the month was over, and that was A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow. Not loving this book, to be honest. I definitely see that it has some really important points in this book, because, you know, black lives and how they are treated in like prominently white communities, which I do appreciate that it puts so much into it. But the part about sirens and mermaids and gargoyles, and that's just goes above my head, because I don't really care, and I'm not really liking the characters at all, and I kind of just don't really care about finishing the book. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel right now. I am probably gonna push through though, because I'm more than halfway through at this point. But yeah, definitely not a new favorite. And those were all of the books I read this month, and if you've read any of these books, please let me know down below what you thought about them, without spoiling, of course. I definitely recommend the majority of these books. But yeah, I hope we see each other in the next one. Bye!